Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Linda, for putting this together as usual. My name is Barbara. I am an evolutionary astrologer with a background in Jungian studies. And today I'm going to be sharing a presentation or a talk on Saturn in Aquarius. It's interesting that I did this live on the meetup here in Denver, where I live. It was back in February when COVID was still not so present as such a threat in our countries. At least it was in China, but not here. And the synchronicities that permeated since then, since that conversation, that discussion I had, are unbelievable. So I'm kind of using a lot of that material plus updated information. And I use this picture because I just find that this transit, it's kind of a taste, giving us a taste of that age of Aquarius that we are coming into. We're still 100 years from being exactly in it, but in the big scheme of galactic time, that's nothing. That's like a second. Now, for us in our human lifespan, that may seem like a long time, but we're really not. We're really there in that transition, just kind of at the threshold. And we're becoming completely redefined. This is why I called it redefining humanity. And I believe that this Saturn in Aquarius transit that we're going to have, just kind of a taste of it, it entered March 22nd and it's going to be there until July 3rd. It'll retrograde back into Capricorn and it will not be back into Aquarius until December 2020. And then it'll stay there until March of 2023. But in this couple of months, we're going to get a taste, and we're getting a taste of kind of the new vibration, what needs to happen, what needs to be updated in the blueprint of humanity as a whole. That's why I chose that picture. It's kind of futuristic, very Aquarian, Uranian, as holding that cup of wisdom and emerging from that new structure that is Saturn. So let's kind of just describe the archetypes a little bit before we dive into the Saturn in Aquarius. For those of you that may not be that well versed in astrology, and just it always helps to review. So Saturn as an archetype, Saturn represents the function of constriction, finitude, age, old age, three-dimensional reality, space-time, time, how we function and structure here is the container of reality, is the conditioning field that we move through. Constriction, restriction, a lot of the stuff we're experiencing right now. This is kind of like common. I think you can hear my dog snoring in the background. I do apologize for that. If you can, he will not be okay if I leave him outside, so I apologize if you can hear that noise. No, great. I can't, so I'm worried. Anyways, so a lot of that constriction we're experiencing right now in the confinement and the lockdown, that kind of comes from all that Capricorn energy that we've had, the Pluto-Saturn conjunction, Jupiter and Saturn, everything conjunction in Capricorn. So that's very Saturnian. We're living it right now, that a period of extreme contraction. And Uranus, the archetype as an archetype, it's kind of the opposite, but they are complementary in a way, and I'll explain that later. Traditionally, Saturn ruled both Capricorn and Aquarius. Back then, before telescopes, Saturn was the last planet we knew of. We could see with our naked eye. We didn't have knowledge of the transpersonal planets yet. So we assigned Saturn to both, to Capricorn and Aquarius. But nowadays in modern astrology, we put Uranus and Saturn in Aquarius, but it's still worth to mention that Saturn rule both. So they seem very opposing, they're complementary, and I'll explain how. So Uranus as an archetype is that deconditioning function, is the rebellious in us. It's that going kind of ahead of our time, that genius, that aha moment, is that space of higher self where we get that information that is not really from the three-dimensional reality, is that out of the ordinary, out of the box. It's, I called it usually the path towards individuation, and I think that's in my next slide. So we are combining both of these archetypes as Saturn goes into Aquarius. Since Uranus rules Aquarius in modern astrology, we're having a combination of both. So what we're experiencing is that whatever reality we had, whatever container structures, Saturn also correlates to any system, the body system, the government system, the economic system, any system that gets organized as such. And Uranus comes in and says, well, look, we have this new vibration, and this is what you kind of have to update to. And the container, the structure that you've been operating under is just too narrow. It's just too rigid. It has to evolve. It cannot really absorb the new vibration. And it cracks it. It usually cracks it because, let's be honest, how often do we just embrace complete and drastic change? It makes us feel insecure. It makes us feel, look what it took really for us to slow down. We've been needing this for a long time. I remember I have been saying it. We're moving too fast. It's a crazy rhythm. It's a frenzy. I don't think we can go on this way. We've been talking about this for a long time. We cannot go on this way with nature. We're corrupting the water, corrupting the way we grow food. We're destroying everything, but we weren't able to stop. Really, it was a lot of lip service, but it took a big drastic thing, platonic thing, toxic, a virus to come and go, well, you're all going to go home now. We're going to restructure this thing. We're going to dismantle it. And this is Uranus coming and going whoosh, with a lightning bolt, cracking the structure of reality. So the new vibration can kind of emerge. And it's kind of what we're experiencing at the moment. I think, let me just check my notes. Yeah. Any questions so far? Okay. Not that one yet. I think I want to continue on this one. So, so Saturn in Aquarius also represents that that impulse towards individuation. That's mostly Aquarius and Uranus. What I mean by this is that peeling of the onion layers, of the conditioning, of the Saturnian conditioning that we have acquired by growing up in a certain family, growing up in a certain culture. I'm probably different. My conditioning is probably very different than that conditioning of a person that grew up in Japan or from the person that grew up in Africa. We just have those layers. So with Uranian energy, we begin to search and to start peeling that so we can get to the actual self, to the individual, to who we actually are when all of that falls away. It's a very, very interesting archetype, and not a very easy one because it really can lead to a lot of shock and trauma as we crack open and begin to let go of those. Sometimes we need those kind of like shocks to move through it, to move forward. This is why I put here the cracking of the container. And I can't quite see it because all of us are kind of covering it, but I think it says the cracking of the container to become updated. for the reality to become updated. I think that's what it says. That was it. So Saturn in Aquarius, as the path towards individuation. So kind of what I was explaining before, in the sense that they're complementary, because we have the structure, whatever we have built and conditioned into this thing that I am, this self, and all the things that I have around me that kind of make up my reality. And then with the Uranian energy, I begin to crack, to fragment that. And new thing emerges. And that new thing at some point is going to crystallize into the new reality, the new self that I am going to be. So that becomes Saturn. And this is how they're complementary. Saturn correlates to the shell. Uranus is that lightning bolt that cracks it. A new vibration comes in, an updated version of the shell evolves and becomes a shell that in the end, or after a while, needs to be the condition from once again. So they represent this kind of ongoing process of peeling off. What I have here is the chart, Ingress chart of Saturn in Aquarius. This was from March 22nd of 2020. And one of the most interesting things that I see here, what I saw back then, is that the square to Uranus in Taurus. So again, a repeating theme. We have Saturn in Aquarius and Uranus, ruler of Aquarius in Taurus, squaring each other. So in relationship with each other, in a stressful relationship to each other. And to me, this is a huge message from Gaia. With this COVID, it's like the revenge of Gaia, if you will. You know, you've been corrupting everything, the waters, the way you grow food, the air. And now we get to stay home. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the skies are bluer, the waters are cleaner, the animals are coming out, they're more vibrant, the atmosphere is cleaner, we're all home. So in a way, we're kind of getting the answer to the questions we've been having, like how are we going to clean the atmosphere? How are we going to get cleaner air? It's definitely not how we want it to happen, but we got it. And we got it in a way that is kind of Earth claiming her power back. In mythology and in esoteric astrology, Gaia is the esoteric ruler of Aquarius. It was actually the wife of Uranus, Earth, Gaia. And it grounds that Uranian energy that can be extremely mental, extremely disembodied, up there in the stratosphere. So together, Gaia brings it down, grounded here on Earth. So it's extremely interesting that at the Ingress chart, we have them squaring each other, and they're still going to be squaring each other for a while. And Saturn here in Aquarius bringing a lot of collective trauma that we're all experiencing. And it also correlates with contagion. And this is something I talked about at the end of February, when I really didn't think, of course I didn't hope this would take the magnitude that it took. But here we are. And the symbols are quite there for us to see. So ushering the age of Aquarius with this transit, this is giving us a taste of what we need to do to evolve. Going back to the normal that we had, I don't think that's the answer. I think a lot of us know that. The age of Aquarius, once it comes, we're going to continue with the technological development. We're going to continue with the brain development. That we have a lot of that already, to bring a lot of very ingenious and innovative solutions to what's going on right now. And this is, I think, what we're going to get a lot of too, like a lot of creative minds and ingenious ideas are going to come. We're all using the technology a lot more. A lot of people are working from home. If this would have happened, I don't know, 10 years ago even, it would be a very different story. A lot of us are able to still continue working, to still making some kind of an income, thanks to the technology that we have, thanks to that Aquarian evolution that we are having. But I think that there is another message here, and that's the message from Gaia, the message from Uranus and Taurus, and it is about updating the way we relate to Earth, the way we grow food, the way we treat the animals. This is going to treat this disease. I think the medicine is in nature, actually, and nature has an amazing well of medicinal plants, herbs, just being in nature, being healthier, being more in harmony with it. I think that's a huge message. And I think the other thing that the symbols are here telling us is not just the revenge of Gaia, but the liberation of nature through this collective trauma that we're experiencing in this where nature is saying, I am done with you. You are not getting the message. You're all going home. And if you don't continue, this is just my personal take on this. If you do not do things to evolve, not just in the technological way, but in a technological way that includes the harmony of Earth as a living organism, and as you being part of this living organism, this is going to continue to happen to us in different ways. We're getting a Pluto, the US at least is getting a Pluto return in 2022. So we continue to gear up for more just titanic change. It's kind of like an appointment with fate. Grow up, mature, and evolve in the ways that you need to. Aquarius age does not just mean technology. Progress going forward. Jung actually talked about progress. When we do progress going forward in one direction, like in just this linear, even when we do therapy, and just this linear, rational part of the brain, there is a dead end. You cannot just progress there forever. And at some point it leads to disintegration. That unless you bring up the opposite energy and you balance it with it, you cannot get the totality of the self. And you cannot actually continue in an integrated way. And we were going that way. We were going to that direction of progress, 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 progress. The goal was just, when this is ingressed, we still right now have the nodes in Capricorn and Cancer. The South Node in Capricorn being that the Capricorn ways that we need to release. This climbing that mountain, completely fixated on the goal of accumulating wealth, accumulating status, accumulating reputation. We gotta come back to this and integrate the feminine aspects of Gaia, of the circular, the emotional, or we're leading to this integration in this kind of seemingly straight line progression that we were going. Any questions so far? Or comments? Okay. How are we doing on time? Just give me 1 second. Okay. I think we're doing okay in time. See if there's something else I would like to talk about. So I think that and there's a couple of ones that we're having with that Saturn and Aquarius, instead of we can take there are two tendencies, main tendencies, which is complete fear and to get traumatized through this whole thing and just go to fear and reactivity and anger and contraction, more contraction. Or we can use this to do that inner work and connect. And I think from there, connecting to nature, the responses, the insights can come from nature and our own nature within us. And I think from there, we're going to get a lot of very interesting ideas that we can implement to help this, to help move forward this new humanity that we need to birth, we need to redefine. All right, so I think that's it for that one. Something else that was interesting, just one more thing I want to say is that Chiron in Aries was also squaring the nodes during that ingress. Saturn was still very close to Pluto, Jupiter, Mars, everything was right there. Mars there, speaking to our constitution, our physical constitution, and how that's being affected, and also our ability to act. We're kind of confined. We're kind of not allowed to do a lot of the things we were accustomed to doing. And Chiron squaring the nodes in Aries, really speaking to that masculine approach that we need to heal. The wounding, the wound of masculinity, and how we have approached life and nature and everything. Just used it as a means, completely abused nature for our Capricornian goals, for our own interests, and that response has created a lot of wounding. And there is a different need for action here. Action has to come from a very different area, an empowered way that incorporates this feminine. So instead of reacting and going to war, to projecting, to blaming, to reacting with action, can we actually step back and withdraw those projections back into ourselves? We're all together with our significant others or children, whoever we're with right now, we're always with them. We're kind of confined. And this can trigger a lot of different things. I mean, a lot of collective shadow is coming up with this, and the individual shadow as well. So this is a great time to do shadow work and take responsibility for whatever is our own stuff instead of projecting it out into the other. Is when we react outward that we wound the other, we create wounding for ourselves, and we wound nature. And we have been with this very masculine approach, and Chiron here is showing us the wounding, but it's also showing us the medicine. Okay, it's also showing us how to go, when we go back to that instinctual nature, there's a wildness about Chiron too. Chiron is very it's a very daemon archetype. So it's teaching us here something, that the action that we need to take has to be quite different. Has to incorporate the feminine so we can heal. And on that ingress chart, we have here the moon with Neptune and also Mercury. That's just making this whole thing extremely confusing. Like, we just don't know what's true, what is not true, what piece of news to believe. It's just so Neptunian right now, the whole thing. So, and that again is pointing to another aspect of Saturn in Aquarius, which is liberation from external authority. We can't trust anybody. We can't trust the news. We can't trust what anybody says. I read one thing on Facebook. I read something else the next day that completely contradicts what I read before. So I have no idea what's true anymore. And I think a lot of us are experiencing exactly that. So this right here, with all of this, and this is pointing to finding that authority within, your own authority. What is your truth? Tuning in and finding that, liberating from external authority and empowering ourselves, because that's the new way, the new Aquarian way too. It's less hierarchical, less we have this government, this Capricornian government that we look up and project all of our blame, all of the authority onto them. We take that back into ourselves. Okay, so with that, I think, yeah, I think I'm ready for the volunteer charts. But before I do that, this is just my website, deep-journeys.com. I have a Patreon, I just created it. And I just share astrological insights there, videos, also a holotropic breathwork facilitator. So I have a holotropic community and I share stuff about it too. And I'm also, I do union work, so I share that stuff there too. And I have a couple of meetups and I just share the Soulful Astrology meetup, but I have a holotropic breathwork meetup too. I see you nodding, so it's, if you're interested, just send me an email or a message and I'll send you the link. And yeah, and that's my email, deepjourneys1@gmail.com. And that's it for me. So I'm gonna stop. I think I'm gonna stop now, Linda, so you can share the charts. Linda, you're there. Yeah. Lisa?
Hi.
Hi. I'm like, I didn't know who you were.
Overwhelming to look at that.
I can see the names on it. I see you, but I do not see the chart now.
I don't see it either.
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
Let me try to remember, because I can actually look. There were a few people that shared something when they shared their charts.
Excuse me, sorry, just having a little bit of trouble. Could you just please hang on for 1 minute?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead, thanks.
Yeah, I was saying that I'm just trying to remember, Lisa, what it is you shared when you shared your chart. I think you said that there was a repeating theme going on.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be the Saturn in Cancer in the 11th.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my 5th house, Capricorn ruling the 5th house with my moon in there, Aquarius. Yeah. So that's the repeating theme.
How does that show up for you? You seem to have recognized it pretty well.
Yeah. I would say suppressed emotional trauma. And I have severe social anxiety, especially with people I don't know. So this is really actually extremely hard just to volunteer for something like this. But if you could maybe look at my Uranus in the second house, that also squares the Saturn retrograde in the 11th. So it's kind of like the theme of what's going on right now for all of us. Mm-hmm. So when you're speaking to bringing that Uranian energy down into the body and grounding it, that is how I deal with that anxiety and that overactive nervous system. And I'm holding like crystals, and I ground myself in oils and lots of like natural ways to engage with nature for healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a huge signature for trauma for sure. Mm-hmm. And the moon and the sun in Aquarius in the 5th are squaring the nodes. So it's also a skip step, and then you have Uranus squaring Saturn. It's kind of like a big T-square going on, like a big grand cross. So I want to focus that on the transit of Saturn going through Aquarius, and I wanted to ask what your relationship to fun was, to joy, to hobbies, to just that Leonian with all of this here in the 5th house, squaring the nodes, and with Saturn and Cancer in the 11th, what I usually see in this retrograde. So there's definitely a lot of like a very strong Uranian energy in you.
Right.
That Saturn retrograde points to Uranus, and it's in the 11th house, points to emotional trauma that was down in the bigger and the larger community, being exposed in the larger community, that maybe robbed the soul from the shining, from having fun and just shining that Leo. That very Leo quality of like, look at me, I'm here, see me, and being completely confident and comfortable being in that role. That kind of has to be recovered for you. And as Saturn goes through, it's going to hit this, and it's going to make you work on this too. Sun in the 5th house usually has that, and Moon in the 5th house, look at me, but being that it is in Aquarius with all of this other stuff going on, it's probably not how it shows up for you. So as Saturn goes through that, it's going to activate all this, and it's going to be a good opportunity to reclaim this.
I feel it's asking me to take responsibility for my creative self-actualization, and also like validating the self.
And that really happens through fun, through joy, through playing, and just being seen, feeling safe in that way. Like I have this image, when the child is about like 7 and it starts going to school and it brings home things, look at what I did. And it just wants to be seen, and that kind of creativity. Like it doesn't really have to be that you're going to become the best artist in the world of renown, but just having that creativity come out and be seen is very healing. It can bring so much healing back into the soul, and to connect you to fun and to feel safe in the community, to have fun instead of the anxiety. That's going to be very up for you as Saturn goes through it, and it's going to activate this. So it'll be an opportunity to work on that skip step and integrate the nodal axis. You're having
I'm entering my Uranus opposition, so I've felt this pull to because what I think what I wanted to say is that I somewhat feel, I'm 44, and I feel like I've had a split personality between all the Capricorn energy that I have and the Uranian energy that I have. And I feel like I'm being liberated from the Capricorn Saturn cycle that was really intense, but I learned a lot and I matured a lot. So that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the split here. You have that Pluto in Libra in the 1st. That kind of puts every archetype in the opposing house. So that's kind of a split that I see with this kind of signatures, where the soul is really trying to integrate the tension of the opposites with almost anything. You see Uranus is in Scorpio, but it's in the second house of Taurus. So there's always this tension between the two. That's going to be with you for the rest of your life, but there is a lot of beautiful, it is through this tension that we get to the self. We get to that, the circle, if you will, the archetype of the self. And there is so much healing and grounding that just takes place from once we do that. Let me look at the nodal signature. So that, let me see, I sometimes mix this one up. Yeah, so the resolution node here would be the North Node in Scorpio in the second.
Mm-hmm.
And you are getting that, you're getting that Uranus opposition, like you said. Like
Mm-hmm.
and then it's going to hit your South Node too. Well, not for a little bit,
Right.
but it's kind of an orb already. It's kind of close. So yeah, really grounding all that energy and finding empowering yourself through the body, through the inner relationship that you can develop with yourself, and through this integration of the opposites. So any type of work that you can do, and I'm gonna say like artistic, draw, paint, where you can maybe draw your dreams, paint your dreams,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of bring these images in a way that you can have the charge that's going on in the unconscious, have it somewhere outside of it so you can claim that power. The soul is trying to become empowered in a very different way in this lifetime, in a very grounded and self-reliant way.
Mm-hmm.
It's really claiming your power back. And yeah. And there's a lot more, but I don't know how much time we have for each.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any more questions? Cindy. Who is Cindy?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So, hi, Cindy.
Hello.
Hi. So I think you said, you were the one that said that you felt like you were stepping into your purpose more and more, right? Was that
Yep.
you?
Yeah. I'm the one that raised my hand around breath work. I've actually been a somatic breath therapist for the last 18 years.
Very cool.
So yeah, so I get it. That's what I have been, it's interesting listening to Lisa, because those have been some of my challenges as well, having, having Venus and Mercury and Capricorn and being an Aquarian. They've sort of been at odds with one another. So I've been doing exactly what you were talking about, is just like anchoring that energy. And right now, with everything sitting on top of those, I have felt an enormous amount of that collective pressure. And so interestingly enough, my personal reality right now, even though I'm in lockdown, I'm doing pretty good because I've done all this work, and I just had just a little tiny bit of triggering around some old traumatic stuff. Wintertime and being, closed indoors and stuff like that, is still a little triggering for me, and reminds me of the old days of being, stuck at home with an abuser, kind of thing growing up. Nothing major, but most of what I actually have felt was that, especially in the beginning, not so much now, but a lot of that collective anxiety and fear, and just having to connect into that breath and go into the higher realms and anchor that energy in.
Yeah.
And, but I also feel like I'm getting ready to move into another phase in, assisting humanity. I feel like that there's a shift that's about to take place, that it's going to, take on something slightly different. So, yeah. So anyway.
That is awesome. Yeah. Yeah. You've been getting a lot of work done here and you're still getting it with all this
Yeah.
transit going on your Capricorn. And
Yeah.
it's almost like you're sensing this purpose. The nodes are shifting too. So you're going to start getting, you're going to get a nodal return. It is a nodal return. So it's aligning your purpose, your nodal axis. You're kind of geared up. You may be getting some messages from that Saturn in Uranus, kind of here aligning with your sun, really calling you to that purpose, to that.
Yep.
And to share your wisdom, to share all that you have accumulated. You know, this is a soul that is really learning how to bring that wisdom, that very natural wisdom. I love that somatic breath work, you know, with this nodal axis. You know, this is the respiratory system, and doing very doing work with it, bring in that, you know, a very a method that you can apply. This conjunct, there's your Saturn is in Pisces. It's a method that you can apply that maybe you have been highly persecuted by in past lives for it, and now that you bring that and you're kind of feeling this call to finally share it with the community.
Yeah,
that's awesome. You know, the moon is also here. Jupiter is in the ruler of the south node is in the second in Taurus, so your Uranus is going to get close to it too. It's getting close to it already. And this is right here, somatic, you know, body work to expand, to heal. This is the soul that's been caught up in a lot of healing, adjusting, self-adjustment. How can we self-improve? It's really great. So I'm so glad you're feeling that, and you have the tools to feel the anxiety and work through it. You know, here with this being indoors, being locked up. And also these two signatures you just mentioned, the winter and being locked up in confinement can feel very triggering.
Yep.
To me too, I hear you.
Yeah, I think to everybody.
That's great with it. He loves it. He's a hermit.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not this. Why is everybody complaining? I want to
totally. Totally. Yeah.
So yeah, no, but you know, with that south node and the ninth and Sag, this is a soul that's like free and that has been trying to look for his authenticity, his true way of expressing your gifts, and this is awesome because that's Saturn going there and kind of bringing. Saturn has a way to also show us whether we have been aligning or not, and we kind of see by the fruit that we're bearing. This is how it's like the karma lord, you know, you reap what you saw. So it may be that you're going to have that extra, that the fruits are going to be coming for you.
Yeah.
With your alignment.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had a little, so when all of this started happening, you know, because I was so used to living in environments where there's, you know, just constantly being challenged. And so here everybody is stuck at home and, you know, the world is kind of doing whatever it's doing and everything. And for the first time in my life, I'm like, I'm cool. Life is good. And I was starting to feel a little guilty about that. And I was like, no, it's okay for me to let this in. It's okay. You know, like, I don't have to join humanity in this because I've already been working through so much of this, you know, but what I can do and what I have been doing, like I've been offering free meditations and stuff like that, just to help people kind of, you know, move through, you know, the whole thing isn't about suppressing what you're feeling. Like if you're angry, you know, like fully feel that anger and breathe into it and just like almost let it burn through you.
Yeah. Worker, you know that you make it bigger, you amplify it, you just
Yep.
Sorry,
and so that's what I do. I just offer stuff like that right now, but I was feeling a little bit of guilt around it. That was what my triggering was like feeling shame and guilt about receiving and being nurtured and all of this kind of stuff. And it was a little weird.
Yeah, and remember that signature with that Virgo, Pluto and Virgo generation, and that Uranus there. You have Mars in Virgo too. So there can be that tendency to analyze everything, to question everything, to every feeling, and that guilt. Just keep breathing through it. If it's not a guilt, like a natural guilt, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you've done something that you broke natural law, then
Right.
the other one you can work through it and breathe it out, basically.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool.
I'm excited for
I love that you're doing that.
Thank you. Me too. That you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's great work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And this is, how do you say your name? Because I don't want to butcher it.
It's Fabiola, but you.
Okay. I can say that. I speak Spanish. Okay, so you were, interestingly enough, you actually mentioned that you are going through Jungian analysis.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw it and I was like, that's synchronistically.
It happened almost as when we first started finding out about the virus in like October, November. I had kind of just looked into it, done some research, but then reached out to an analyst in January, and then it kind of seemed like all hell broke loose.
Can be that way, yeah.
Like, metaphorically and literally.
Yeah, that's great. And you said also that you're considering that you actually liked it that much that you're considering a career change with that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right now, y'all can see that whole stellium is in the first house, and I currently do financial services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's an entire identity restructuring that's going on for you, you know, with all of this, the transit here, everything. Yeah. That was one hell of a transit for you, for sure. Going, all those planets going through the ascendant, for all those Capricorn risings. I mean, my respects. It's what I really loved about this when I looked at it is you see this here. It's in the 11th, but it's in Scorpio, right? Uranus and the Sun. So there is a very psychological orientation that maybe was not developed before, but going to the bottom of things, you know, like really, really get into the bottom. An analysis in a very Uranian way, but it's interesting that you went for Jungian, not Freudian, with the South Node in Pisces. You bring all that imagery of the imaginal, the pictorial, that the Freudian analysis would have been just too wordy, too heady, it wouldn't have incorporated this, the wisdom that you bring here. That the Jungian really does have that aspect. That's probably why you're enjoying it too much. I have the same South Node, so I relate. It really gets to that Piscean realm where we can get in touch with that, that very Neptunian area of images and visions, and to work with all of that and the archetypes. It's really, really beautiful. And to bring that into a method that you can actually use.
Yeah, you know, well, you saying Saturn and Uranus was about being your own authority or peeling back this hard shell that, you know, in 2008, ever since 2008, it's just been an upheaval, an uphill climb, and I never really saw myself as having any qualities of a Capricorn, just being all over the place, and as you can see, but then coming into this maturity kind of by force. I used to sing many years, and then I felt like called to grow down, I guess, to to do the dishes and to take care of business. And now it's like, even though all hell's breaking loose in the real world, seems like it's okay now. As Cindy said, you know, feeling a little bit of the guilt, like, you know, I have clothing, food, and shelter, and, you know, all the Virgo worries, and like, man,
Yeah.
people don't, you know. But as you said, it's because we've been called to put in that hard, grueling grind, difficult work to get to this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, and I guess you know, it's kind of hard sometimes to feel that we're kind of against the grain, that we are feeling some sort of joy in this peacefulness, this very strange joy, because it's very mixed with all these other things. And then we see the collective really freaking out, because most people are. And at times it gets confusing. Should I be freaking out? Should I be feeling that way too? Am I just being too joyful, too over positive over here? So it can happen. And for those of us who have a lot of Virgo, for sure. So I said to Lisa before, just keep kind of working on that guilt and tuning into yourself. It's interesting that you've been devoted most of your life to financials and very Capricornian work. Your identity is really shifting now. It's really like all that is breaking. You have a South Node here in Pisces with the ruler in the 12th house. So there is a lot of wisdom, a lot of spiritual wisdom within you that you can bring to the world, that can come out of here, can come out of sort of hiding, and be shared through a method that you can share it with the world and empower yourself and empower others.
Literally, I had my therapy appointment right before the meeting, and we were just talking about, you know, we were using my imagination to kind of get to a solution. Where I was supposed to ask this lady a question in my imagination, and she said, just breathe, 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 breathe. And then here you all are, breath experts.
Yeah. Now you have 2 breath workers here in the meeting. I love synchronicities. And so Saturn here, it's already been going and keeps going. And your first was in Capricorn, but now it's in Aquarius. It's restructuring, and it's going to restructure your second too.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe right now, as you could see, I'm working out of my closet.
And probably the way you bring resources to yourself, like it's going to, you kind of getting those hints already, like the Uranian hints that maybe I need to reevaluate my value system, the way I bring resources to myself through a different career, through a different method.
Yeah.
You know, Uranus here going through the 4th house. That's amazing to do that kind of the inner work you're doing. That very emotional, the inner work. Chiron right there. So it's gonna be hitting that.
You're right. In the next couple years will be my opposition. Because
yeah, and it's gonna hit this, and it's gonna activate. This is this has a lot of trauma related to. Again, we have another very Aquarian signature. Trauma related to the community, to whether you've been ostracized or shut down for your ideas, for your power, and having to recover that, and kind of feeling that as Uranus is gonna activate all that, the wounding, kind of allowing yourself to feel that. And I think that in the Jungian analysis, you'll have the opportunity to use the gifts of the South Node, where you'll go into the imaginal to feel all that out and to interact with it as the trauma and the wounding, like it all emerges. It won't just, since you have this setup, it won't just kind of take you for a ride. Now you have the tools to go into the imaginal and interact with that and ask it questions. The moment we do that, we kind of create that Uranian objectivity. We're now face to face with the contents of the unconscious, and now we can have a conversation. It's not just the unconscious taking us for a ride and in the trauma.
Well, like probably for most people in the exterior world, where they're just being taken for this crazy ride.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And this is a great time right now. I think another great message from this COVID is introversion. We get an opportunity to do the inner work that hopefully can lead to centroversion, a centeredness that is different, from the two becomes a third.
I like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm wondering if, I took on my ascendant like too severely with Saturn. They're so severe to where it's like now it's cracking, as you said, crack open and come back to yourself.
Yeah. So your entire life you've been more Capricornian, is that how you feel?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't I wouldn't have said that like earlier in my life, but looking back,
you didn't notice it probably.
I had not noticed it. And even coworkers, I remember a coworker saying something like, "Oh, I just can't imagine seeing you cry." And I was like, "What? I cry every day." But I guess that's what I was putting out.
Yeah, and Saturn in Virgo can be such a hard worker. It can just go to work.
Yeah, but not at Capricorn.
Yeah,
I get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, great. But you have some. Let me see. Mercury is. You have some. The ruler here is in Sag in the 11th, Pluto in the 9th, Saturn in the 9th. You have a lot, and then there is a combination of the Sagittarian and the I lost that. The Sagittarian archetype with the Piscean archetype, and then a lot of Uranus too. I kind of have something similar. So there is this, and with this, if this is not integrated, you can get lost here in a lot of other stuff until you find yourself, and you kind of bring the gifts, and you kind of really bring them into reality, and you claim that for yourself, and now you're like, okay, this is who I am. But with all this Sag, my sense is that there's got to be a person in there, a soul there that is really looking for freedom and for its own authenticity, and that has gotten so caught up in philosophies and ways of living that maybe were not authentic to you.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going, or like Lisa said in the first video, like a split. Mm-hmm. It's literally see like it's split between two sides of the chart.
Yeah, and a lot of Plutos and Libra are dealing with the split, and with this nodal axis, what I tend to find is that sometimes you can get kind of lost in the first part of life. Maybe you don't think you're lost. You're following a road, but then you realize that was not it. That was not responding to your authentic truth. And there is a realignment that happens at some point where you now can bring this in a very healthy way if it's integrated well with the Virgo archetype. And you can really bring those Piscean gifts into the world and apply them, which is really going to work with your Capricorn rising. Like, you want something tangible. You want something that's practical, that can help and heal people, not that it's just up there in La La Land, sort of.
Yeah, like woo, as they say.
Right. Okay. Any other questions?
Oh, that was really great. Feel satisfied.
Thank you.
Okay, Barbara, we're winding down now. Would you like to do a summing up or some final thoughts?
Just maybe sending blessings to everybody.
I'll catch up to you. Oh, sorry.
Just sending blessings to everybody, and to maybe take this opportunity and remind everybody and myself to really do the inner work, and use this and choose every day to empower ourselves. It can be really hard sometimes. Like, I have my days too where I'm more triggered, I'm more scared, then I'm super happy. Like, I do not want to go back to the other normal, the way it was. But what does it mean, right? What does the new normal mean? So just want to say that we're, as we usher the age of Aquarius, we're kind of in that transitional point in the birth canal. This is how I called it a couple of times. We're birthing this, so we don't really have the new yet. And the old is dying. So we gotta be the midwives to the process. And birth is messy and it's scary, and you know, a midwife, having a good midwife really makes a difference. It can mean that we get the baby and the mother and we have a good result or not. So just that, become that. And the way to do that is to ground and do our shadow work, because we cannot really be available for others if we haven't dealt with this. We just continue to project, we just continue to blame, and to see anything that's going on here as outside of ourselves. So with that, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for volunteering. I know that for some of you it's hard and it's intimate to share your chart, so I appreciate it. Thank you, Linda. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Barbara. And thank you to your volunteers, Lisa, Cindy, and Fab. Just unmuting everyone now. Would you all please thank Barbara Yuruvich Arias?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Loved it. Thank you.